Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests in the building.
Yes, indeed.
We have Tamika, Mallory, and Mysonne.
Greetings.
Hey, y'all.
Until freedom.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
And today is a big day because y'all launching the Street Politician podcast on Black Effect iHeartRadio.
That's right. That's right.
True. That is true. Thank you so much, Leonard, for the opportunity to be a part of your new endeavor with the Black Effect Network. It feels really good to be in a place where you can be as black as you want to be. Because you said
blackity.
black.
That's right. No, I was gonna say, why do y'all call yourself street politicians?
I think for me, we decided that that there was a disconnect from the streets and politics. You know, coming from communities, marginalized communities, Black culture, hip hop culture. A lot of us in our community don't feel connected to politics. And, you know, and me and Tamika being on the forefront of the civil rights and advocacy work that we do, we understand that disconnect. And we feel like we know how to translate from the streets to the suites, as we say. Mm-hmm. You know, so we wanted to create a show, you know, a platform where we talked about hip hop culture, when we talked about how it integrates and intertwines with politics and how everybody definitely has a role and can play a role. You know, I remember going to a club and DJ Self seen me in there when I started doing advocacy work. We was in the strip club and he was like, "What you doing here?" I say, "The same thing you doing here. I'm getting a couple of drinks, watching some strippers." He's like, "Nah, you ain't supposed to be in here. You know, you do." I'm like, "Nah, that's," and then that's the disconnect. Y'all think because we actually on the front lines and we do work for civil rights and we fight for the rights of our people, that we not for the culture and we not actually the same people like you. So that makes people feel like they don't have an intersection into this work. So, you know, our platform is showing that intersection, showing how you can be of hip hop culture, you can like the strip club, you can like Cardi B, and you can still go and do a meeting with Jesse Jackson's and sit down, you know, with Reverend Al Sharpton and be at the table doing civil rights work.
So will you only interview people that have your same views, or let's say for the podcast, would you talk to somebody like a Lil Wayne or even like a Lil Lil Pump, or, you know, artists?
that was shade.
Artists like that. Like, will you have conversations with people that don't necessarily view or have the same views as you?
I mean, I will. Tamika, and we don't
agree with each other.
We don't agree with each other. So you know, that's what our podcast was pretty much based. We got a lot of different views. We share the same, you know, the same passion for the movement, but we definitely have different views. And sometimes on the show, you know, we get into debates. So I definitely want to bring somebody up that has a different point of view than me and try to get to understand them. Now, I can bring you up when you have a different point of view, right? But I can't morally conflict with you. I don't even want to give a platform to somebody that I'm morally conflict and understand that you getting on my platform is elevating your voice to a moral standard that doesn't coincide with mine. Now, that's something different.
So like a Tekashi 6ix9ine, if he wants to talk about his documentary that's out.
That's never going to happen.
What about you, Tamika? What are your thoughts on people that don't necessarily agree with your views?
You know, well, like I said, my son and I have conflict. And, you know, we've been doing Street Politicians for a while, but now we have a bigger platform with this podcast. And I think this election cycle has sort of helped us see where we align more than we used to think we did, because we used to argue about everything. But as the election played out and we really got to understand the trauma of our communities, I think we began to have conversations where we're kind of trying to see eye to eye. So that's one part of it. I have no problem with talking to people that I don't necessarily agree with. However, I think my son's sentiments are so true that I'm not trying to elevate people and provide, you know, false narratives to our community, because it's just too serious right now. Like, we just have so much that's at stake, and we cannot be sitting up playing around or have, you know, joking around with people's lives, because when young people particularly hear points of views, sometimes they can take the wrong things from certain people just because of the packaging, and they begin to apply those things to their real lives. And we can't afford to do that in this moment. So we will be careful, but yes, we are going to have controversial topics that, you know, sometimes we don't necessarily agree. And I think the other reason why I wanted it to be called Street Politicians is because people think, similar to what Mysonne was saying, that we live in a bubble, that we don't understand like what's going on in the world. We have, you know, I might have a man problem one day that I want to talk about, and I want to sit and talk with people about like what is how do we deal with the relational issues in our community as well, because it's politics in a marriage, in, you know, trying to get married, trying to fall in love. It's politics in everything that we do in our lives, and I think we have a way of being able to show people the connection.
Gotcha.
What do you think about people having views like supporting a Donald Trump, right? And we saw some hip hop artists come forward and show their support for him. But other people will say, okay, well, everybody's allowed to have a different opinion. We shouldn't discredit people just because of who they're voting for. What are your thoughts on that?
They should have that opinion somewhere else, because I'm just, you know, like I said, I can't even really be in conversation with individuals who are trying to help me understand why Donald Trump is good for our people, knowing that this man has literally been a disaster that killed 240,000 individuals. Like, this is now beyond you and I not necessarily agreeing on, you know, I'm not going to say a simple topic, but some topic in our community. You know, should we spank our kids? Shouldn't we? You know, should we put our kids in all Black schools, or should we continue to allow them to go to integrated schools? Those are conversations that we can debate about, because it helps the community sort of begin to shape their opinions. But when we start talking about imminent threat and danger, that's when we have to take a strong position. And I think we will use our platform to speak to some of it. But certainly I'm not trying to have, you know, Charlamagne's friend and Killer Mike's friend Candace Owens on my show. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, see that, and that's
and Angela Stanton and all these people not doing it.
Not them, because, you know, they're aligned with the party. They've made a conscious decision that not only do they support, that they work for, and their whole objective is to elevate that platform. So those are things I wouldn't do. But I would have conversations with Waka Flocka or 50 or, you know, or Little Pump, one of them who said that they support, and break down what they're saying and give them an understanding of what they're doing, because a lot of them don't even have knowledge of what they're talking about, and they're going along with, you know, false narratives that being put on the internet and that they're hearing, and they don't have, like, Lil Wayne doesn't know what the platinum plan is. He just looked at somebody, told him it made sense. He probably has no idea what he's saying. So when you sit down and you really have a conversation with them and you break it down from beginning to end, I believe that we can come to some level of understanding and really educating people. You know, so in that regard, it's different. But like she said, Angela Stanton and Candace Owens, those who work for the establishment that's definitely trying to marginalize our people, we can't ever give them a platform.
I saw you posted what Angela Stanton tweeted out about the Million MAGA March, where she was supporting it and saying it was good until some N-words came and ruined everything.
Yeah.
And,
you know, well, and then the week before that, I was on TMZ, and she wrote underneath, someone posted the video of me being on the show, and she wrote that Black women, actually the interview I was doing was about how Black women carried Joe Biden to a win. Mm-hmm. And she wrote in the comments that Black women know how to do everything except keep their babies in their womb, or something like that.
Wow.
And so I wrote, because, you know, sometimes the petty, it comes over me and I can't help it. I try to fight it, but in this particular situation, I just couldn't help it. And I sent it to Charlamagne and said, and don't tell me to delete it, because I'm not. She lost her election by 70+% in Atlanta. She just ran for
85 to 15%.
Oh, see, well, yeah, exactly. So she ran for Congressman John Lewis's seat. Mm-hmm. And people think that Black folks are stupid. Like, those people weren't just voting for Congressman Lewis because, you know, they just were like robots. They were voting for him because they believed in something. They had a connection to his work. So when you come in as a person who's talking about carrying Donald Trump's message, there is no way, shape, or form that folks are going to support that. And so they slapped her down, and I had to write on my page, I thought somebody who lost their election by 70% said something. Like, how are you talking about me? You need to go figure out where you went wrong, miss. Thanks. So no, we're not going to get into, because I probably get into arguments and be looking crazy, and then y'all will be texting me, "This is not you, Miss Mallory." I don't want to hear that.
And they don't realize that really is you. That really is you. This is what this show is going to show you. What a lot of stuff that y'all think is not Miss Mallory is Miss Mallory.
That's a great point, Mike, because, I think a lot of the leaders, past and present, they out here performing. It's a lot of performative activism going on. So when they see people like yourself and Tamika out here really doing the work for real, they don't realize y'all real people. So they may see y'all in the script club because y'all not pretending. Y'all really do this work. It's not performative activism. Performative activism says, I can't be in the strip club because it doesn't fit my image.
Right.
Exactly.
That's not who y'all are.
But then you got strippers in your house, though. So then, that's a whole different conversation.
Whole different conversation.
Now, when we do look at everything that's going on in hip hop right now, and there's been, a lot of unfortunate incidents that have happened in the past few weeks. Yeah. What can be done? Because you have to come from a place where you're not preaching and trying to tell people what to do, but what can be done?
Yeah. I think for me, that's where, I play a role in just the movement in general. It's coming from hip hop, being incarcerated, being in the streets, understanding the dynamics of the streets, and being able to speak to them. Not like you said, don't preach to them, but let them understand the realities of what come with that life. Every day I'm dealing with young kids and mentoring young kids. I have an organization called Raising Kings, in which that's what we do. We sit down and talk to at-risk youth and have conversations with them and explain to them what a real right to passage is and what manhood really looks like. I think what happened with this hip hop culture is we start identifying the wrong things with manhood and what quote unquote real was, and we were misled. So there has to be a real conversation. People have to be honest and say, yo, that's just not real. Like, I hear what you're saying, but that shit ain't real. It's nothing real about you killing your brother. It's nothing real about you beefing with somebody that you don't even know and you willing to take his life. That's not real. I don't know who told you that. Anybody who's telling you that is lie. We got to be able to call that out and make being unified and make loving each other what's in again, what's trendy. We create what cool is. We create the trends. And it's time for us to stand on the forefront. And that's why when we do this work, that's why I come as I am. I don't try to, like he said, it's not performative activism. I still might go to a gambling spot and sit there and dudes be like, yo, where you here? Because I know these are the people I'm trying to save. I'm not trying to save the people that's already doing good. I'm going to the gambling spots. I'm going to the hood, to the barbecues. I'm having real conversations. They sitting around me. You know what I'm saying? We might have a shot of Hennessy, have a conversation, but it's real. You know what I'm saying? So they can identify with me. They don't think I'm preaching with them because they know I come from exactly what they come from. So that has to be the message. We can't continue to promote anybody that's 30 plus, 40 plus, that's still telling these kids to shoot and take lean and drugs and all that shit. We can't promote that. Like, we have to make an honest, decision and say, yo, we cannot promote that.
Mm-hmm. I think we also have to understand that this pandemic has made people hungry, for real. Streets it's a different situation. We going back to the 80s and the 90s when people were hungry, people starved, and people trying to figure it out because the stimulus money has ran out. They busy, debate. And by the way, even if you give people another $1,200 or whatever, it's not enough money for folks to really survive and thrive. So you're going to see more and more violence. And that's why, everybody goes crazy about this whole defund the police topic. But it's important that we understand what defunding the police will give us the opportunity to do. And that is to be able to refund our communities, as Mysonne said, and to put some monies into the things that we need in terms of housing, in terms of food. In Louisville, Kentucky, there is only one supermarket in the entire town. One supermarket, one Kroger. And when there were protests happening, that Kroger closed down. And so people were unable to get real food. These are like real live issues that's happening in cities across this country and urban communities, which creates violent situations. So we're going to see more of it until we come to a place where we stop putting, because by the way, the police officers who we came up against many times in Louisville at the protest, they got the best equipment. They like the Apple of police departments. They have flashbangs that they can take your eardrums out. They have all of this militarized equipment, and yet there are no mental health services. And many of the people who are protesting for Breonna Taylor every single day are folks that don't have real housing. So we have to be able to find balance so that we can take guns out of people's hands and give them the opportunities. And you know, Angela, that when we sitting at home and we're not doing much with our lives and people are just kind of having idle time, things come up, arguments come up, people start getting into menace, you know, an activity that they shouldn't be into. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. This is a real dangerous time, and we really have to have some serious strategies to address it.
Tamika, why do you think Democrats get the messaging of defunding the police all wrong?
I think Democrats are scared of everybody except the people who are the base of their party.
That's a fact.
I think that's the problem. I think that they are, and it depends on which Democrats you're talking about. Because if you think about some of the older, more established, and some of the younger, but people who lean towards the older, more establishment politics of the Democratic Party, and then you think about the Ilhan Omars and others like Alexandria Ocasio, they have no problem saying defund the police. And that tells you that there are two different mindsets that is happening within the party. And by the way, many of the individuals who are afraid to use language like defund have been losing their elections, but that's a whole different story. And I mean, and you know, there are some who will say, well, Jamie Harrison in South Carolina lost because of, you know, him using the defund language, or not that he used it, but that the Republicans tried to attach that to him as messaging. I think the problem is that we need to, the Democrats actually need to lean in, right? Lean into the people who really support you and stop trying to capitulate to people who do not have shown us over and over and over again that they do not support us and that they are not the base of the party. And I think that's just something that we have to fight about. And it's going to be a real fight, because you think about the fact that it seemed to me that Kamala Harris was very clear on what defunding meant. She understands it. She gets it. She may not use the language, but you know she gets it. And meanwhile, Joe Biden is running around saying he absolutely is not trying to defund police. And instead, the strategy is to pour more money into training, which doesn't make sense. So this is where we're going to have to really fight them.
Now, what about, you know, a lot of people feel like Joe Biden, as far as the presidency, was just as worse, especially black people, was just as worse as Donald Trump. What do you say to those people? Because some people don't believe in Biden.
Biden ain't no different than Trump. Biden ain't no different. Listen, those people right there, right, are ignoring imminent danger as we see. You understand what I'm saying? When we look at what Donald Trump represents, there is two different things. What I would say is, as a 70-year-old white man, does Joe Biden have racism? Yes, he does. He's a racist. I don't believe that any 70-year-old white man doesn't have a level of racism and uneducated in racial sensitivity and understanding certain things. And that's something that Joe Biden is definitely guilty of. But there's an intentional white supremacist racist mentality that Donald Trump exudes, that he fosters, that he sponsors. There is a whole base of racists that he activates every time he speaks, and is purposely done. So when we look at those two things, we compare the 94 crack bill, the 94 crime bill and the 88 crack bill. That was right.
86 mandatory minimum sentencing.
Yep. And when we talk about those things, we have to realize that those were 20 plus years. 20 plus years ago, I was accused of robbery. I was sitting in the cell. 20 years ago, some of my friends was doing time in jail. But in 2020, there is a president right now who is out here doing the exact same thing that somebody was doing 20 plus years ago and planning to further that activity. There's one who might want to make amends for that activity that he did 20 years ago. I'm going with the person that might look like he's trying to make amends. I'm going to stop the bleeding, the imminent danger, the immediate president that is sponsoring and fostering white supremacy.
Yeah, what I tell people is Joe Biden has implemented legislation that has ruined way more black people than anything Trump has implemented yet. If Trump would have stayed in that White House, he was already rolling back the war on drugs, mass incarceration, all of that. That First Step Act was an illusion.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's that, and also it depends on how you really want to look at it, because when you think about the fact that they have installed over 300 judges in the courts across this nation, they were doing a much more strategic thing than just passing a bill, right? And then allowing the fallout of the bill to be what we know the crime bill has done to our communities. What you're looking at when you think about Trump and the Republican Party, they are actually playing serious chess. They're setting up the government to stand in a certain way that no matter what they want to do, they're going to be levels of the courts that back them up. They understand that that was the place where they needed to start. So it's like if you're getting ready to cook something, you don't just throw it in the oven. You got to clean it. You need to cut up the onions, get all the stuff sitting around. You got to set up for this great meal that you're preparing. Because if you put dirty collard greens in a pot, nobody's going to eat them. So you actually have to prepare. And that's what they were doing with the courts and the Supreme Court, obviously, and federal courts across this country. Thank God it didn't work out with this election, because if he could have used it, he would have tried. But there's absolutely nothing. In fact, I see today they're talking about Lindsey Graham may have asked the Secretary
of State of Georgia.
Secretary of State is saying that Lindsey Graham asked him to throw out real ballots.
Yep.
Now that makes you wonder, did they throw out ballots in South Carolina against Jamie Harrison?
Had to, because Jamie got his ass kicked. And I was like, there's no way Jamie got beat like this.
I put a lot of money in that Jamie Harrison thing. I was texting you like, yo, the deadline.
Yep.
Make sure you send your money.
Yep.
So I just can't imagine. It was a lot of support for Jamie on the ground, but I think that when the whole idea of the two men being alike, I think that it is probably true that they have some similarities. I'm not going to argue with that, but I do know that one of them decided to bring a Black woman along, and the other one, every Black woman that's been around has been disrespected and treated like trash.
Yeah, I think what Mike said is very important. I mean, it's just all about atonement, right? So now that you're president, you have the opportunity to atone for all of that legislation you implemented, while you was in the Senate. So
yeah, and having conversations with the camp and listening, I definitely feel like they want to do better. I feel like they really realize that they made mistakes. We don't know, but we're still going to push them, us and Until Freedom. Our job, like we said all the time, we were never voting for a friend in the White House. We was just voting for a better opponent, because anybody that was in the White House, we was going to fight anyway. And that's what I was trying to explain to people. We got to fight, but we have somebody that's on the verge of dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're literally creating a coup, and like when you look at right now, he is creating a coup. He has no respect for the government. He has no presidential skills. He shouldn't even be the president of a junior high school class, let alone America.
Damn.
Well, we all have our own responsibilities too, because once you elect the president, it's not just, okay, let's wait and hope he does what we need him to do for us. That just means that we have to make sure we keep our foots on their necks to make sure what we need is done for our community, and that's our responsibility as well.
And that's why I got hope right now, because of people like Tamika and Mysonne being on the ground.
But that's what we did with Obama. We had a party. We went to the Christmas parties, because I was there. And I was smiling. I was taking my picture.
You was in the White House, Tamika?
I was in the White House several times. The Christmas party was a big deal. When you got that invitation to the Christmas party, you was in the cool crowd. You know what I'm saying? And I was saying we cannot allow the line dancing to go on Memorial Weekend in May and forget about the work that has to happen. The streets got to stay hot, because Kamala, she know how to line dance real good. This lady can, she can do a two-step. But that is not what this is all about. Mm-hmm. We got to keep these streets hot. And I think that if you win the 2 seats in Georgia and you get some control within the Senate, And then you also have an administration that understands atonement and realizes that we're not playing, that everything from Black radio to corporate folks in the corporate space, all the way down to those on the ground, are going to really, really be serious and be united about this fight. I think we have the opportunity to get some things done. We may not get everything done, but I believe that there will be some things. But you think about how President Obama started the 21st Century Task Force on Policing. They were really, really getting some things done. They had passed the consent decrees across the country, where they were beginning to look at police departments and real determinations. Loretta Lynch made some real strong indictments on police departments, like in Ferguson, I think. Yeah, it was in Ferguson, saying that they had real serious racial undertones that had to be addressed. So they were beginning to look at police departments and break down the incidents. They were starting to talk about data, which is something that people need to know, that still today, there is no real database that looks into the number of Black people who have been killed, especially unarmed, against those other incidents. Because, people like to say, well, more white people have been killed by police, but that is because there are more white people in America. But when you look at the incidents of how it happened, and you compare them apples to apples, you see that the injustice leans towards African Americans. And they were starting to look into things like that, but then they lost, in terms of the Democrats, the election.
So what demands do you think need to be placed on the Biden-Harris administration, Tamika?
I think we need to, I'm sorry, Mysonne.
Go ahead, you got it.
I think we absolutely need to go back to said task force and begin to look into these departments. I think also they need to instruct their FBI and the Department of Justice, rather, forget the FBI. They need to instruct the Department of Justice to look into some of these real serious cases like Breanna Taylor. That they, even though they can't say we want an indictment, and we want charges to be brought against them, but they can certainly be serious about having the administration look into these cases to be able to be an outside entity and not have somebody like Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General, sweep under the rug the murder of Breanna. So it's things like that I think is one part. And I think from an economic standpoint, we absolutely need to look at what the opportunities can be for our communities. We are in a situation where housing and poverty in general is a massive crisis. We know that. We know that people are living in certain neighborhoods, and it's places that you wouldn't step foot into if you were, if you was in the most desperate situation. You'd rather live on a park bench than to live in some of these housing developments across this country. And the entire time that Donald Trump was president, his administration, and what's the guy's name that's over housing the Black man?
Ben Carson.
They were doing nothing but trying to destroy public housing. There needs to be a major investment in a place where we know Black and brown people live. So from an economic perspective and a criminal justice perspective, those are the two lenses that Until Freedom will specifically pay attention to. And then also the last thing I'll say, and I'll let Mysonne go, is that these cabinet positions, because I've been hearing things, we don't know what is actually going to be announced from the administration. But when you think about the types of people that they're even talking about putting over the different cabinet, the different departments within the administration, it's dangerous. There is no way that you can have Mitt Romney. If that is, I heard that as it was gossip, but it was a rumor. But nonetheless, I heard that they were looking at Mitt Romney for Health and Human Services. If we know that Black people are the base of the Democratic Party, how the hell do you appoint somebody to lead a department that is so significant in our lives? And the man hardly even knows Black people, and he has made some really serious racist statements about us. And he still, whether or not he has been against the Republicans on some issues, we know he spoke up, but nonetheless, he continues to be a part of that party. And therefore, I don't feel comfortable with him being responsible for my body, and specifically my vajayjay, which we know they're trying to take control over.
Well, we got a lot of ends in the White House. Cedric Richmond is supposed to be named senior advisor today.
Okay.
So
that's good.
We'll see.
Sense.
That's
I
good.
think what Clyburn said too, I think I heard Clyburn on your show talking about, you know, in the first 100 hours,
100 hours.
You know, and those are things that we got immediate. Like, we got to look at the effects of these crime bills and these crack laws and see what we can do immediately to roll back those effects. You know, I remember when one thing that I will say, Obama was trying to have a retroactive law that let out pretty much everybody who was convicted of nonviolent and drug offenses that you know, that had a certain level of criminality to it. And I think those things should be implemented immediately. There are so many people that are dealing with the effects of those crime laws that are still incarcerated, doing, you know, life in 20 and 30 years. There are still people who are terminally ill, Black people who are terminally ill that have been affected by some of these bills that Joe Biden had signed into law. So we need to immediately look at how do we make some retribution to that and get some atonement for those things.
Now, you know what I wanted to ask y'all? When do you turn people off? Like, because going back to Angela and Candace, right? Because in their mind, they feel like they are liberating Black people. What would you tell them about liberating Black people? What do you think they're doing wrong?
Who are you talking about? Like
Angela and Candace.
I think for me,
your cousins, Tamika.
Yeah, those are her cousins.
I actually like Candace Owens as a person. I've had conversations with her. We sat on a panel together. I wasn't feeling well. She was really, you know, concerned about that. We had a good conversation, but, you know, people work for folks. People be trying to get them checks. Like, that's really, it's nothing more you can say. You know, I think in Angela Stanton's situation, you think, you know, she was pardoned, and we get that. And it was a good thing that her story is strong. We know that her story is solid. I love her story. That's why I was attracted to her. But then as you begin to dig deeper into these people who follow Trump, it's like cult-like behavior, you know? And I've been saying over and over again, yes, on one hand, we could see some benefit to any administration. There's nobody that's going to come into office and you just say, oh, they did nothing. They just totally did nothing at all. Everybody, just because of the way the government works, there's going to be some push and pull. There'll be some benefits. But overall, it's like looking at Trump, and it's my same argument with Ice Cube. It's my same argument with 50 Cent. It's the same argument I have with all of them. On one side, you might be able to get you a nice house, a nice car, you can get you a diamond ring. But when you get home, the man is going to beat you and bloody your eyes and choke you and damn near kill you. So these things can't be dealt with separately. They have to be looked at as an entire pie. If you're going into the administration and you're working with them to get some economic relief, but then on the streets, they're allowing police departments across the nation to beat up on those of us who are fighting for our rights, those conversations can't happen in isolation. They have to happen at the same time. And I know I'm probably talking too much, but I have to say this. It was my same thing. You know, I was real careful on the Ice Cube thing because I have learned to try my best not to fight with Black people in public as much as possible. I've been working on that, especially with Black men, because there have been moments when I've had some real knockdown dragouts with Black men in public, and it has hurt other Black men that I love. And so I've really been, especially as a Black woman, I know that our power is so strong that we have to be careful when and how we use our words. And my son does it enough for both of us. So I just let him be the one to go out and argue with people all day. And the situation with Ice Cube, it took me a while. I watched, and as I grow, and rather than me speaking on it publicly at first, I sat back and I watched. And he tweeted something the other day that helped me realize that I wasn't wrong for feeling that the way in which they approached the situation, what he was trying to do, which I think was a good thing, but the way in which they approached it, I already knew that it wasn't, I didn't agree with it. He tweeted a list of names of individuals that he talked to. And he was saying, don't try to tell me that I didn't speak to real people before putting together my plan. And there was not one Black woman listed, not one. And I knew right then that if you had the right Black woman like Alicia Garza at the table to be a part of the conversation, she would have said, here is the direction that I think we need to take with our people so that we can mitigate any potential harm in this particular election process. She also would have been able to bring forth other things aside from, I know that maternity death is a major problem. That seems to be the only real substantive thing in his plan that has to do with Black women. If you don't have a strong Black woman at the table, it doesn't have to be Tamika Mallory, but whoever it is that is able to help advise what you're doing, your plan is already going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's crazy coming from Cube, too, because I saw when Roland tried to connect Cube and Alicia. So it's not like he doesn't know Alicia exists.
Right.
Right. And I think for me, you know, in that same question is when you look at these voices that seem to be on the Republican side, they're always in rooms of white people speaking about Black people. You know, you can't claim to represent us and always talk about the most negative things that have to do with us. You always bring up, you never show any positive, you never call out the oppressor, the people who are doing things to us. So you can't say that you're trying to uplift Black people, but you never call out the people who have inflicted harm upon Black people. You're always in rooms full of white people talking about the things that Black people need to do to be better, the things that Black people don't take accountability for, the way Black people have done something wrong. You can't come to us and say that you represent us, but you always talking about us and never and always without us. Mm-hmm. You know, come to rooms that we are, have dialogue with us. I don't see them in rooms where it's a bunch of Black people in Black colleges, you know, and they always in these Republican white-filled rooms having these conversations. So it's disingenuous to me, you know, and in a situation where, like Tamika said, that I'm attacking people. I don't think I attack people. Mm-hmm. I think I have a low tolerance for what I call, you know, either ignorance or where you intentionally ignore something. You know, I don't do that. And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem being called out. If I do something wrong, I want you to call me out. If you know, and I utilize the word we. In this era, a lot of Black men, we have to take real responsibility. You know, we see that Black women are leading in so many different areas, and we got to be conscious of that. So when we realize that we're not living up to our full potential, I'm gonna say, yo, we need to do something better. Like I'm not excluding myself. I can do something better. I can show up better. I can do things better. You know, in the situation with Cube had all the right intentions, but if somebody's telling you that the way that you went about doing something is wrong, don't take it personal. It's not personal. Just listen to people who are actually doing that work. If we explain to you, some people that worked with Cube had called me prior to and said, hey, they want us to come to the White House and sit down. I said, that's a bad idea, because they're not going to give you anything. They just want to be able to say that you sat down with them. They want to utilize you and utilize just the fact that you meeting with them as an endorsement. And then not.
That's the first thing they did was send out that tweet and confuse everybody.
Explains, and I'm like, it doesn't benefit you. If you go in there and they're giving you something, they can sign executive orders to put something into order right now.
Right now.
For 4 years, they haven't done any of the things that you're telling me that they want to do right now. So obviously they have a playing plan. They understand what they're doing, they understand why they're not doing it. So make sure that they give you something. Before I sit down and I'm gonna have a conversation with somebody who's been a sworn enemy to me, you have to show me some level of change. You have to show me an olive branch before I'm able to endorse you, to sit down with you and have a conversation. I have to see that you're willing to do something to change.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank y'all so much. Always
thank y'all for joining us this morning.
Congratulations on everything that you guys have going on, and definitely love and appreciate y'all so much.
Listen, thank you for wearing this shirt,
huh?
Charlamagne. We love you for wearing that shirt
Absolutely.
today. All right?
100%. Salute to Jamila.
Yeah, Jamila T. Davis, Black Women's Lives Matter.
That's what's the website?
Black Women's Lives Matter.
Yes. I forgot why I ordered these. I ordered these, by the way.
All right.
We talked. She said she tried to send you some free stuff, and you was like, "Nope, already
got it. Already got it." So listen, Street Politicians podcast out right now on Black Effect iHeartRadio
every Wednesday.
And I can't wait till Tamika's next announcement too.
Yes, sir. That's gonna be
I'm so excited.
We working.
It's the
Love
Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Love y'all so much.
All right.
Love y'all. Be safe.